Does Juilliard need to modernize for it to exist in the future? It's a no-brainer. Of course. In this video, I'm going to be talking about what my thoughts are on the recent Rolling Stones article regarding classical music, and in particular the Juilliard School, but I think it is very applicable to all the music schools in the country, in the United States, as well as around the world. So stick around to the end of the video about my thoughts. The recent Rolling Stone article talked about how Juilliard and most of the music conservatories around the world are not preparing their students and the people who go to these major conservatories and music institutions for the job market and for jobs that are pretty much not going to be high in demand in the next maybe 10 to 20 years. And the question at hand is, should music schools modernize? And of course the answer is yes. But why should they modernize? Why aren't they modern enough? I remember taking a class with a music history seminar, and this one really wise teacher said that the trends don't really happen right away at an instant. They happen maybe 20, 30 years down after the turn of the century. And folks, we are experiencing that shift right now. And it's very important for us to kind of follow that shift as opposed to cling on to the old ways. Because in the end, you are investing money to go to an institution, any institution, not just Juilliard, any institution, to make sure that you secure a job afterwards. That's no longer the case, right? Like, if the pandemic taught us anything, that no job is a secure job, whether you're in music or anything else. The internet is causing all of us to move at a very fast pace. So we have to adapt, or we get left behind. Social media, now everybody's on social media. For me, I started YouTube during the pandemic, and I also started the Violin podcast during the pandemic. So you can have different outlets of creating a music career for yourself that is outside the traditional career path of what a classical musician can do and should do. For instance, the classical orchestra job, the quartet job, the teaching job. Two questions that we need to ask ourselves when it comes to music institutions and modernizing themselves. First of all, why? And second of all, how? Why do we need to modernize, and how are we going to modernize the music institutions in today's world? After reading a lot of comments online, on YouTube, and on Facebook, Instagram about this Rolling Stones article, nobody's really talking about how we should modernize. And I think that's our failure as classical musicians right now. We're talking about how musicals need to modernize, but we're not talking about any solutions as to how. And the article provided some solutions, which means that this person who was a Juilliard educated person obviously knew what she was talking about, meaning that she probably wanted some more entrepreneurship classes or music business classes, which is stated in the article. However, I feel like that's just simply not enough. The word entrepreneur means someone who starts their own business. And that's something that I've taken really personally for the last 6 years or so. For those of you who follow me on the channel, I auditioned for a major orchestra right before my senior year of college, totally flunked that audition. And it made me realize I'm like, okay, well, I'm paying so much money for a collegiate education and something that I'm passionate about. Am I going to get a return on that investment? And that's when I really started to think, I'm like, well, if I'm applying for orchestra jobs, it's kind of like what my aunt said, who was also my violin teacher a very long time ago. It's kind of like winning the Olympics. If you win an orchestra job, it's kind of like winning the Olympics. And for the thousands of violin graduates that are around the country who are watching this video, I want to say, it's okay not to get an orchestra job. You don't have to. And nor, that shouldn't be your main priority. Trust me, I did the Mendelssohn Scherzo, the Don Juan, and then the Mozart 39. I did all of that. Is that sustainable? Is that a sustainable business model for yourself, for something that you are going to spend many hours practicing, which of course, we practice to get better, right? The road to winning an audition takes a very long time. I feel like we're slowly experiencing this transition from the traditional music making model, like major orchestras, quartets, and whatnot, and we're trying to do everything virtually and online and becoming more entrepreneurial. But the big question is, how do we modernize? How do we become better than before? Well, having an education in just learning how to play an instrument is just simply not enough anymore. But it's what you do with that education and how you perform and how you think as a musician, I think that's the real education. And how you apply that in the modern world really does matter. For instance, I'm using this YouTube channel to create a big impact in the world of violin pedagogy. I hope 5 years down the road I can speak at conferences and hope to provide my insight and my value on violin pedagogy and what I've learned that is most effective for students. There's this long running joke on the musical side of my family where I was like, I'm not gonna be a teacher. I don't wanna be a teacher, I just wanna strictly perform. And then my violin aunt was like, haha, okay, yeah, talk to me in like 5 years. Well, here we are, 5-6 years later, and here I am teaching. And I have a studio of about like 32 students. So like, but the fun thing is that I enjoy it. For a very long time, I thought I was gonna be performing in an orchestra or some kind of chamber music. And I tried both and none really succeeded. For me, I gravitated towards a teaching route because I feel like I can communicate with parents, students, and not just like teaching and music education in like the traditional sense, like in violin pedagogy. I think like music education as a whole. I think that's why I started the Violin podcast, and that's why I definitely started this YouTube channel to provide more information for people who need it. It's not just about formulating a traditional conservatory, university, music school scenario. It's not just about learning your instrument anymore. It's just, you have to be able to adapt. It's not just about being good at just one thing anymore. It's being good at a lot of things. And I hate to tell you, even though the violin, and if you're a musician for any other instrument for that matter, being a musician is tough, right? But we don't do it for the money. We do it so that way, we can change people's lives. We play music so that way we send a message about a particular topic or a theme that we've encountered in our lives. It's a means for us to communicate beyond, text. And for that reason, that's why I think music schools should adapt. Everybody can be successful if you continue to follow the trend in the 21st century, which is going digital. I think that is going to be the next 5 to 10 years of our life, is trying to create more value for our audience member through video and through the digital space. I'm not saying that concert halls are gonna die. That's not what I'm saying here. The conversation is, how do we modernize? Like, if you're an indie or entrepreneur musician like myself, you wanna make sure you are catering to current trends. You wanna make sure you're adding value to your audience. And that's what being an entrepreneur is if you have a business, you wanna have a solution to solve a problem. And that's what we need to start teaching in music schools. If you want to be an entrepreneur musician, we have to teach musicians how to solve problems in the real world. It could mean starting a startup. It could mean developing an app. It could be you're teaching full time. It could be that you're using different ways to apply technological advances inside the classroom. Sky's the limit. So here's my advice for any music institution or conservatory watching this video. If you made it this far, then you're obviously interested. Create so much value for your students, and then listen to your students. Because they know best. My students who are like, 5 and up, I learn from them every time I have a lesson, and I try to cater to their needs, because in many ways they're my clients, and I want to make sure that I provide my clients in the music studio and the violin studio with as much value as possible, so that way they leave their lesson feeling successful. So in your case, you want to make sure that the student in a collegiate classroom leaves with a lot of value, feeling inspired, knowing that what they've learned in the classroom they can apply in the real world. So I'm curious to get this conversation started. What are your thoughts on modernizing classical music? I would love to hear your thoughts down below, and let's start a conversation so that way we can continue brainstorming some ideas. Thanks for watching this video. If we haven't met yet, my name is Eric. I'm the host of the Violin podcast. I'm a violinist. I make violin how-to tutorials and product review videos to help you become a better violinist. If you haven't done so already, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notifications. That way you get notified for when new videos come out. It also helps out the channel to provide more videos for you, since none of these videos are sponsored. Thanks so much, and let me know in the comments section down below what you think about the Rolling Stone article and this video.